So we're here in Marble Falls, Texas, and what we're going to do today is meet a local dentist named Dr. Logan Stanley, and he's part of Stanley Dental, which is a father-son duo. And what we're going to do is we're going to learn the concepts of integrative or biological dentistry, and then we're going to learn more specifically the problems or the hazards of metal mercury fillings in teeth and how to safely remove them. So let's go meet Logan. Logan.
Hey.
How's it going, man?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good to see you again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've known you for a while. Let's start with kind of defining or explaining to everyone kind of your vision, kind of what you and your dad do different, Stanley Dental, and just kind of how you look at dentistry and approach dentistry a little different than kind of what's the norm out there.
Yeah, so you could define biological or integrative dentistry as just more of a focus on the person attached to the teeth, the systemic health, and then some of the fallout, some of the negative effects that dentistry can cause in somebody's overall health. Teeth are still important, and maintaining health in the mouth is very important, but we have to pay attention to how our materials and our procedures can affect the systemic health, and they do.
Right.
And then in cases where there's been some concern there, whether it be from a patient or maybe a referring physician, is how to undo that. And so basically just considering the overall health much more than most.
Right. Yeah. Typically they're looking at more just the teeth. In an isolated manner.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Sure. All right. Yeah. Let's and we're definitely gonna talk a lot about that. Let's can we do a quick tour?
Yeah.
Of the space?
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Yeah. That'd be great. Part of our protocol when we're taking out offending materials, especially mercury, are the room fans. We wear respirators, our patients wear nasal drapes. We use rubber dams that isolate the teeth that we're working on. So isolating the mercury when you're removing it is the most important thing. Those fans basically, and we have 2 high volume suctions going at all times, so that's scavenging a lot of the vapor. So the problem when you go to take those out is protecting the patient so they're not exposed to the vapor, the elemental mercury vapor that escapes when you work on these. And so there's protocols for us, even down to the type of burr we use, how we remove, the amount of water. You've got to keep it wet and dry, and that cuts down on the vapor, but also the microparticles that come out. And there's a great research, I hope we talk about it later, where some guys from our academy did a phenomenal job proving how much mercury comes off when you do it properly versus improperly versus baseline, leaving them alone. Because that's a big thing is, well, am I getting that? That's a classic response is leave them alone because you're going to get more exposure taking them out than leaving them alone. That's true if you don't do it properly. Right. Yeah, and now they've shown multiple times with good research that if you do it properly, employ all the protocols that we're held to and that we learn and we've modified, but an academy we study with, IAOMT, actually has a standard that they put out, and that patients go there and they say this is, and they learn this is how it should be done. Here are the protocols. Here's the minimum things you should do. Go find a dentist that can do these or more. So the fans in the room, if there's any vapor that gets past all of that protocol, it scavenges and runs it through a bunch of filters. And so the point is not just to protect the patient, not just to protect us, but occupationally, we've got to protect the office, everyone else that's in here. Any vapor that may escape past our suction and our water and all of the stuff that we employ, this goes over the patient's chest, and it'll scavenge any vapor that might get past what's going on in the mouth.
And this is for when you take mercury, and we'll get into this more, but mercury amalgams out of the mouth.
Primarily mercury amalgams. That's the most insidious, dangerous one, because it does contain mercury, over 50%, and it volatilizes. Gotcha. So you have to, and like I was saying with the research, it's not just the vapor, but then you have these microparticles that can get past all that. That's why the drapes are important, and they can sit there and off gas, and you don't want a patient transporting those out either, or you don't want them on us, right? And so mercury spills in any other occupational setting are a really big deal. we can spill mercury every day and our ADA doesn't care. I mean, it's just take it out if you need to, leave it alone. And there's zero protocol from the American Dental Association and what we were taught to remediate it safely. That's a huge problem. I don't understand. There's dentists that have varying opinions on this stuff, but I don't understand from an occupational standpoint how we get by with it, because it's very dangerous. A mercury spill in any other capacity, it's a huge deal, because you've got about 500 milligrams on average in your average amalgam filling, maybe more if they're large fillings, and that's just one, right? That's just what gets mixed up and gets put in. Let's say someone has 8 of these things. You take that amount of mercury and go throw it in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and they condemn the pool, right? But people are walking around with this in their mouth, and we're told that it's okay.
This is what you wear?
Yeah, so we wear those. I wear loops, magnification, 5-power loops. So I have my glasses on with my magnification. Sometimes if we're doing larger cases where we're working in quadrants or full mouth, we'll wear face shields.
So you'll have this on and then a shield over it?
Yeah, and my loops and your magnification. So that's got some cleaning material on it.
Yeah, no, this isn't mercury.
No, it's been wiped down. Most people recognize this as the nitrous oxide nose piece. If you've ever had work done, you've had a nose piece on nitrous. Whether we do nitrous or not is optional, but while we're working, we have this over patients' noses with a seal around it. So as we're working on them, comfortably, whether they're sedated or not, they've got a sealed, fresh, source of oxygen. We use negative ion generators, which can help to further precipitate out any elemental mercury that gets past all of this protocol.
Are you guys using porcelain, composite?
Composites. So our replacement options, if you're going to go to all this trouble to potentially remove offending materials, it makes pretty good sense that you would go to as much trouble to put in something that to our best ability and knowledge is compatible. If done well, if you prep well and you restore well, you can restore teeth back to at least to a much stronger state, more durable state, I would say, than even amalgam, meaning the teeth can hold up just as well or better if you do it well. Not just the material, that's oftentimes used even today, is dentists will say, well, the amalgam has such a long track record and it lasts forever. And I would challenge that. Resins done well, properly bonded, prepped, bonded, all the restorative aspects taken into play, you can restore teeth back to as much strength as they had, or maybe even enhance it to some degree. But you've got to take the necessary steps. And so there's a whole science to that that's kind of outside of biological dentistry, but still applies. You want to do the best you can if we're restoring these patients to be able to give them something that's durable, long-lasting, and that they can live with, right? So for the most part, when you're getting fillings done, it's resin composite. And that's direct composite.
And you guys don't do much, because I know there's a bunch of options, like porcelain, for example.
So where the porcelain comes in, and the ceramics come in, the true ceramics. Porcelain, it's called composite because it's a mix of resin and composite and porcelain. So it's a mix of porcelain microparticles and resin. That's why it's called a composite. When you're restoring like inlays, onlays, crown and bridge, things like that, you're actually using high density ceramics. Metal free, because again, I'm not metal phobic. There were some metals. High noble gold is a pretty compatible metal. There are some decent metals, but there's a lot of incompatible metals that just may work well in the mouth, but they just aren't that compatible. And so the ceramics, you get away from that. There's still other ways, that implants, another topic, but most of those done today are metal, but there are ceramic options for those. And again, I think now that they're good enough and have proven track records, I just don't see why you wouldn't try very hard
to get away from all metal.
To just get away from the metal. Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. All right, Logan, let's end with anyone who's interested. How do they get hold of you?
Yeah, you can get on our website. And that's a good place to start, stanleydental.net. Email, phone numbers are on there.
Gotcha.
Reach out to the office. The girls up front are great about helping and answering questions, maybe preliminary questions that you'd have. And beyond that, I mean, whether you make an appointment or if you have deeper kind of pre-interview questions where they have questions specifically for me, I try to do my best to answer those even before you come in as on an official consultation.
So I want to thank you about that, and thanks for having us out. And
Sure. Enjoy it.
tell your father I said hi.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.